The peace you seek isn't found in a temple in the Himalayas, but in the sound of a kettle whistling in your kitchen. Imagine a monk sitting in the lotus position atop a mountain. Absolute silence, total serenity. That's the classic image of peace, right? But what if I told you that you can achieve that same tranquility without leaving home? No sacred mantras, no expensive trips? Yes, it's all hidden in something as mundane as the steam rising from a cup of tea. What led me to this discovery wasn't a spiritual retreat, but an ordinary morning. I was exhausted, crushed by deadlines, and my mind felt like a browser tab with hundreds of tabs open at once. But then, something unexpected happened. What I realized in that moment could change the way you view your daily life. I used to think that to find peace, I needed either spiritual retreats or exotic travels. But little did I know that peace was hidden in the sound of the kettle whistling. That's right, that elusive peace you seek might be closer than you think. It's literally hidden right under your nose. Even if you enjoy traveling and exploring new places, know that you don't necessarily need to go somewhere exotic or attend a meditation retreat on a mountaintop to find peace. Instead, you can perceive and connect with peace in the seemingly mundane chaos of your daily life. I know how strange this might sound, especially because, for a long time, I too searched for answers outside myself. I believed that happiness and serenity were things that needed to be found out there, in special places, with special people, or in perfect moments that rarely happen. A simple sip of coffee can be more transformative than a year of therapy. That morning, as the kettle heated up, I found myself doing something I rarely did, just waiting. No scrolling through my phone. No mentally reviewing the day's to-do list, just observing the water boil. And that's when it happened. I noticed the aroma of coffee filling the air, the gentle warmth of the cup in my hands, the steam drawing invisible shapes in the air. And then, my mind slowed down. It wasn't a miracle or a thunderous epiphany. It was a moment, an instant where, for the first time in a long while, I was truly present. Are we looking for happiness in the wrong places? Before this unique experience, my mind was a constant storm of thoughts, work deadlines, bills to pay, relationships that seemed to demand more attention than I could give. Even on the day of the kettle, I remembered dragging myself out of bed as usual, tired and irritated. In this state, I went straight to my phone, checking notifications before my feet even hit the floor. At that moment, I felt something you might have felt too, an overwhelming sense that no matter how fast I ran, it would never be enough. It was as if I were trapped on an endless treadmill, trying to reach something that was always one step ahead. But then, on that very same morning, something changed. As I walked to the kitchen to make coffee, I noticed the warmth of the sheets still clinging to my skin. The sun was streaming through the window, casting golden patterns on the floor, and the scent of fresh coffee began to fill the air. I paused for a moment, just a moment, and that's when something inside me relaxed. It wasn't a grand revelation or a beam of celestial light. It was simply a quasi-conscious decision to be present in that instant, rather than letting my mind wander to the future or the past. That experience made me wonder, are we looking for happiness in the wrong places? Could the key to a more tranquil and meaningful life lie not in grand achievements or extraordinary moments, but in the small things we do every day? This question led me to explore ancient and modern philosophies, from Zen Buddhism to Stoicism and positive psychology. A Zen master once said, "When eating, eat. When washing dishes, wash dishes." It sounds simple, but this is one of the greatest lessons about happiness. In Zen Buddhism, there's a concept called shoshin, or beginner's mind. It's the idea of experiencing each moment as if it were the first time. Now, pause and think. When was the last time you truly felt the texture of the suds while washing a dish, or noticed the sound of water hitting the sink? Perhaps never. And it's not your fault. The modern world trains us to be anywhere but the present. But when you decide to pay attention to these mundane moments, something magical happens. What can an ancient Roman emperor and a Taoist master teach us about this? Stay tuned to find out. And what I discovered is that, yes, inner peace is within our reach, but we can only access it when we learn to look at the present with fresh eyes. Imagine waking up in the morning and truly feeling every detail of the moment. The warmth of the sheets wrapped around your body, the golden glow of the sun streaming through the window, the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. These moments may seem simple, but they have the power to transform how we see the world. They remind us that, even in the midst of chaos, there is beauty. Even in the deafening noise of a bustling cafe, or the frustration of endless traffic, we can find an inner quietude that helps us navigate life with more lightness. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about it. How many times have you been irritated by something completely out of your control? Traffic, a rude email, a plan gone awry? But what if, instead of fighting against it, you simply accepted it? Stoicism teaches that serenity comes when we distinguish what we can and cannot control. This connects perfectly with Zen and also with Taoism, which invites us to flow with life rather than resist it. Water does not fight the rock. It simply finds a way around it. So, how can you bring this into your daily life? Today, I want to share some lessons I've learned along this journey. Lessons that have helped me transform routine tasks into moments of mindfulness, accept what I cannot control, and find peace in the present. Because, ultimately, I believe we all deserve to live a fuller, less stressful life. And this journey begins here, now, with you deciding to take the first step. Zen in the everyday. What if every task in your day were a doorway to a state of calm and presence? Now, I want to challenge you. Choose a mundane activity from your daily routine: taking a shower, brushing your teeth, walking to work, and turn it into a mindfulness experiment. Tips to get started. Engage your senses. Feel the temperature of the water, the smell of the soap, the texture of the towel. Breathe with intention. Notice the air coming in and going out. Accept thoughts, but don't dwell on them. They will come, and that's okay. Just return to the moment. What happens when you do this for a week? Try it for a week, and then share your experience in the comments, inspiring others to find inner peace in their daily lives. When I started exploring the concept of mindfulness, one word kept appearing in my readings and reflections: Zen. At first, I admit I felt a bit intimidated. After all, I always associated Zen with monks meditating in absolute silence or complex rituals that seemed unattainable for someone like me, who could barely sit still for 5 minutes without reaching for my phone. But then something incredible happened. I realized that Zen isn't about perfection or isolation. It's about acceptance, about being present. And this can be practiced anywhere, even in the chaos of our daily lives. Let me share something personal with you. There was a time when I was completely dominated by the need for control. I wanted to plan every detail of my life, from the time I woke up to what I would have for lunch that day. But life has a funny way of teaching us lessons when we least expect them. One day, my car broke down in the middle of a busy highway. There was no cell signal, and I was late for an important meeting. I remember hitting the steering wheel, frustrated, thinking, "Why is this happening to me?" At that moment, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. But then, something curious happened. I stopped resisting. I took a deep breath and told myself, "Okay, this is out of my control now. What can I do?" It was as if a heavy cloud had dissipated. Instead of fighting the situation, I decided to accept it. I started observing my surroundings: the blue sky, the cars passing by, the distant sound of birds. And surprisingly, I felt calmer. This experience led me to delve deeper into philosophies that embrace this idea of acceptance and presence. Zen Buddhism, for example, teaches that inner peace doesn't come from changing the world around us, but from changing our relationship with it. This led me to explore other schools of thought, like Stoicism, which shares a similar principle. Focus on what you can control, and let go of what you can't. Remember Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher? He left us a powerful reflection. You cannot control what happens around you, but you have total command over how your mind reacts to it. Recognize this, and you will discover an unshakable source of strength. This idea became a true guide for me, especially in moments when I find myself tempted to resist situations beyond my control. But it doesn't stop there. Another philosophy that deeply inspired me was Taoism. While Zen and Stoicism emphasize acceptance, Taoism invites us to flow with life, like water that finds its way around rocks in a river. Lao Tzu, the great Taoist master, once said, "Water is fluid, flexible, and powerful. Like water, we must adapt, find our way, and move forward." This metaphor helped me see that resisting life only creates more tension. When we learn to flow with it, we discover a lightness that once seemed impossible. And, of course, we can't ignore positive psychology, which brings a modern perspective to these ancient teachings. One of the most valuable lessons I've taken from this field is the importance of gratitude. Research shows that people who practice gratitude regularly tend to be happier and more resilient. I started applying this in my life in a simple way. Every night before bed, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for that day. Sometimes they are big achievements, like a successful project at work. Other times, they are small moments, like a stranger's smile at the supermarket or the scent of rain in the air. This exercise has helped me cultivate an abundance mindset, even on the toughest days. A practical exercise I'd like to suggest here is the following. Choose a routine activity you do every day, like brushing your teeth or taking a shower. During this activity, focus exclusively on what you're doing. Feel the texture of the toothbrush in your hand, the sound of the water falling, the aroma of the soap. If your mind starts to wander, gently bring it back to the present moment. It may seem simple, but this daily practice can be transformative. It helps train our minds to be more present, even in the most mundane moments. Before we move on to the next topic, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. How can you apply these philosophies, Zen, Stoicism, Taoism, and positive psychology to your daily life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to know how these ideas resonate with you. Transforming tasks into meditation. Have you ever considered that even the most mundane tasks can become a form of meditation? It might sound strange, I know. When I started exploring this idea, I also thought it was a bit far-fetched. After all, how could something as ordinary as washing dishes be compared to those serene images of monks meditating in absolute silence? But then, something unexpected happened. A few months ago, I was going through an especially stressful period at work. My mind was constantly occupied with thoughts about deadlines, meetings, and problems that seemed never-ending. I had forgotten what I had experienced before. I would come home exhausted but still felt agitated, unable to relax. It was on one of those nights that I decided to try something different. After dinner, instead of leaving the dishes piled in the sink as I usually did, I decided to wash them right away. But this time, I did it mindfully. I put my hands under the warm water and watched the suds form. Instead of thinking about the next task or the day's problems, I focused only on the sensation of the water running through my fingers. I imagined the suds as soft clouds, floating between my hands. The sound of the water hitting the sink began to sound like a gentle stream flowing through the forest. And little by little, I noticed something incredible. My mind, which had been a whirlwind of worries, started to calm down. It was as if each dish I washed also cleansed a part of my mind. This experience made me understand that transforming daily chores into moments of mindfulness isn't just a nice theory, it's a powerful practice. Washing dishes might seem like a trivial activity, but when you approach it with intention, it becomes an opportunity to train your mindful attention. This reminded me of a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, one of the great masters of modern Buddhism. Washing the dishes is, in itself, a sacred act. We are not just washing the dishes to have them clean. We are washing the dishes to be alive while washing them. This phrase perfectly sums up what I discovered that night. But it doesn't have to be just washing dishes. Any routine task can become a mindfulness practice. Making the bed, for example, can be a way to cultivate inner order while organizing your external space. Vacuuming can be an opportunity to observe the patterns on the floor and appreciate the texture of the carpets. Even folding laundry can be a meditation if you pay attention to the precise movements of your hands and the feel of the fabrics. Let me share another personal story here. Recently, I went through a moment where I felt completely overwhelmed with responsibilities. I had just returned from a long and tiring trip, and my house was a mess. Instead of panicking, I decided to approach the situation differently. I started by organizing my closet, a task I usually avoid because it seems tedious. But this time, I did it with full presence. I sat on the floor, picked up each piece of clothing, and folded it carefully, observing the colors and textures. As I folded, I realized that each item carried memories: that shirt I wore on a special occasion, that jacket I bought during an unforgettable trip. Suddenly, what seemed like a chore turned into a moment of connection with myself and my experiences. This type of practice not only helps alleviate stress, but also teaches us something profound: that the beauty of life lies in the details. When we start paying attention to the small things, we realize they have much more meaning than we imagined. It's as if we're rediscovering the world through new eyes. Now, I want to challenge you. Choose a simple task you do every day, whether it's washing dishes, making the bed, or taking a shower, and turn it into a moment of mindfulness. Here are some tips to help you. 1. Focus on your senses. Observe how the water feels on your hands, the sound it makes, the smell of the soap. Use your 5 senses to anchor yourself in the present. 2. Breathe deeply. Whenever your mind starts to wander, bring your attention back to your breath. Inhale and exhale slowly, as if creating a rhythm for the moment. 3. Practice gratitude. While performing the task, think of at least one thing you're grateful for. It could be something related to the task itself, or something entirely different. 4. Be kind to yourself. Don't worry if your mind wanders frequently. That's normal. The important thing is to bring your attention back to the present whenever you notice you're lost in thought. I invite you to share your experience in the comments below. How was it transforming a daily task into a moment of mindfulness? Did you notice any change in your emotional state? I'm eager to hear your stories. Mindfulness isn't a goal to be achieved, but a continuous practice. It's like breathing, something we can choose to do consciously or let happen on autopilot. And just like the air that enters and leaves our lungs, it's always available to us, even when we don't notice it. Let me share one more thing that happened to me recently. I was in a busy cafe, trying to finish an important text while the noise around me was deafening. People were talking loudly, chairs were scraping the floor, and the sound of the coffee machine seemed never-ending. Normally, this would have irritated me deeply. But that day, I decided to try something different. Instead of resisting the chaos, I chose to embrace it. I closed my eyes for a moment and began to listen to the sounds around me as if they were part of an improvised symphony. The clinking of cups, the murmur of conversations, the distant hum of traffic outside. Little by little, something curious happened. The noise that had previously distracted me began to blend with the environment, becoming almost comforting. It was as if I had found an inner space of silence, even in the midst of all that bustle. When I returned to the text, my mind was clearer, calmer, and the words flowed more easily. This experience made me realize that mindfulness doesn't need to be reserved for special moments or quiet places. It can happen anywhere, at any time, even in the most unlikely scenarios. And the more we practice, the more natural this presence becomes. It's not something we need to force. It's something that simply happens when we decide to pay attention. Now imagine applying this same approach to the small things you do every day. Imagine turning a walk to work into an opportunity to observe the colors of the sky or the rhythm of your steps. Or, when preparing your meal, feeling the aroma of the spices and observing the textures of the ingredients as if it were the first time you'd seen them. Each of these moments is a chance to reconnect with yourself and the world around you. And here's a reflection for you. How many times have you let life pass by without truly living it? How many times have you been so busy thinking about the future or dwelling on the past that you forgot to be present in the now? The truth is that the present is all we really have. The future hasn't arrived yet, and the past is already gone. The only moment we can act, feel, and live fully is this exact instant. So, what can you do today to start cultivating this presence? Maybe it's washing the dishes with full attention. Maybe it's sitting for 5 minutes in silence, just observing your breath. Or maybe It's simply noticing the warmth of the sun on your face as you walk down the street. Whatever your starting point, remember that every small step counts. And if you feel like sharing your experience, I'll be here in the comments to listen. Happiness isn't a future event. It's a now that you're not noticing. How many times have you wished to be somewhere else, at some other time, waiting for the weekend, for vacation, for a day when finally everything will be right? But what if I told you that the life you want is already happening now? It's in the sound of the wind through the leaves, in someone's laughter in the background, in the touch of your foot on the ground. The present is the only place where life happens. The past is gone. The future hasn't arrived yet, and every second we spend ignoring the now is a piece of life we never get back. So, the next time your kettle whistles or you wash a dish, pause, observe, feel, because it might be in that small moment that you find everything you've been searching for. Now, I want you to take a pause and reflect. When was the last time you truly stopped to observe the world around you? When was the last time you allowed yourself to feel gratitude for something seemingly insignificant? Maybe it was the warmth of a cup of tea in your hands, or the soft sound of rain hitting the window. These moments may seem small, but they have the power to anchor us in the present and remind us that, even in the midst of chaos, there is beauty. So remember that the peace you seek isn't in some distant, sometimes unreachable place. It's here, now, in this very moment. All you need to do is pause for an instant and perceive it. By the way, there's something more I'd like to share with you. In the first pinned comment, there's a link to an ebook that can help you dive even deeper into this journey. In it, you'll find practical exercises, inspiring stories, and reflections that can illuminate new paths for your mindfulness practice. If this content resonated with you, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. This helps me continue sharing messages like this with more people. And don't forget, there are 2 videos on the screen to continue this journey of self-discovery. Choose one, and let's embark on this quest for a more present life together.